In recent memory, Star Wars games have unfortunately been a bit of a mixed bag. The inconsistent reception to these new generation titles, I believe, is amplified by our golden tinted glasses that remain firmly focused on this golden age of Star Wars games past. Cliché as it may, an overgeneralization certainly, Star Wars has produced some renowned, historic titles in gaming. And, as part of my quest for the answer to why Star Wars has struggled so much within gaming, I think it is important to start our journey at the very beginning. Welcome to the gaming conversation, and also to the very first edition of our new series, The Gaming Investigation, a series where we explore some of the biggest topics, questions, and mysteries within gaming. Over the next trilogy of videos, we are exploring the nature of Star Wars, specifically taking a look at the historical context of Star Wars in gaming, and why Star Wars has struggled to establish a dominant empire in the realm of gaming, all in the hope that in this endeavour we might gain a better understanding of whether or not there was, is, or will be a perfect Star Wars game. Today, we start off by going a few decades back, just a little far away. The late 90s was quite an exciting time. The world was becoming increasingly progressive, the Cold War was slowly fading to a distant memory, and finally, we were getting a new Star Wars movie. I myself was largely unable to converse at this point, but it was an exciting time nonetheless. At the same time, gaming began to take strides towards the mainstream, the PlayStation 1 no doubt playing a part. Gaming as a whole was heading in a very exciting direction, and the same can be said for Star Wars' status in gaming. In 1990, George Lucas's LucasArts was famously coined, and with its renaming came a refocus on establishing Star Wars within this exciting and certainly lucrative area. This is where our golden age began. As I mentioned, I was a tad preoccupied during this time period, being an infant and all, but I still retain fond memories of retroactively playing a number of the big titles years later. Games such as X-Wing, which perfectly encapsulated the adrenaline surge feeling of being a starfighter, or Dark Forces, which gave us our first look at conflicted Jedi Kyle Katarn. Whilst he may no longer be recognised in canon, still he holds a place in many of our hearts. For those that had to endure the 16-year slog between movies, these games provided a strong placeholder and a genuine commitment to expanding this massively popular universe. We received a new Jedi, we got the opportunity to reenact awesome space battles just like the movies, and indulge in an already impressive catalogue of games. Of course, this period of time did have many misses too, but I think in many ways, the successes stand out far more. This golden age from a technological standpoint was merely testing the waters for the wave of brilliance that was about to come. Oh boy, how the tides would later turn, but we will get to that. By definition, a golden age is a time where mankind was doing pretty well for themselves. Progress was being made, and at the helm of that progress was innovation steering its course. Yes, there will always be some missteps along the way, but the journey is an exciting one. From the mid-90s to early 2000s, it's fair to say that Star Wars and gaming made a happy couple, willing to compromise on canonical accuracy where possible. Consequently, companies had license to be creative, branch out into different subgenres in gaming, and ultimately offer a diverse Star Wars experience for gamers and Star Wars purists alike. Where the Jedi Knight series offered incredibly gratifying lightsaber mechanics and immersive duel simulations, even to this day putting shame to its modern contemporaries, we'll get to that in part 2, the likes of BioWare could also cater to RPG fans, such as myself, with the amazing Knights of the Old Republic series. It was evident that LucasArts was happy to experiment, to offer a degree of freedom to its developers, so that they create not only token titles, but also genuinely successful games that stand strong, even without the solid foundations provided by the Star Wars name. Knights of the Old Republic isn't a game you look at and say, I'll play it because it's more Star Wars. It is a game that you'll play for its fantastic role-playing mechanics, world building and gameplay that triumphs, irrespective of what universe it is from. And you only have to look at the issues with the recent Avengers title to see that a game should not just rely on its name alone. Of course, with any sort of real creative freedom, there was always going to be hits and misses. However, you cannot deny that titles such as the Knights of the Old Republic series, titles such as Jedi Knight felt inspired, felt comfortable expanding on an existing universe. This was fantastic. And this was a sign that LucasArts saw gaming as not just a vehicle to capitalise on the movie's popularity, but also as a way to expand Star Wars' reach and existing mythos. Unfortunately, this would later become a more complicated matter, but we will save that for next episode. Nostalgia is an emotion that science states quite literally makes us feel warmer. The nostalgic longing for the good old days is a very human trope. But these good old days we speak of were never exactly the way we remember them. Now, I'm not going to delve into the science of matters too heavily. As someone that wouldn't even warrant a participation trophy in science lessons, it really isn't my place to say. Nevertheless, it is important to be aware of the nostalgia factor when evaluating the history and significance of Star Wars in gaming, namely this perceived golden age. I don't need to explain that most of these games mechanically pale in comparison to modern titles. The technology at the time was simply not as good. What we can do, however, is recognise that this period of time will always be revered, because first of all, we are humans, we are sentimental sods at times, and secondly, there was nothing to compare it to. What I mean by the second point is that games such as Knights of the Old Republic, the original Battlefront games, Dark Forces, they were all pioneer titles. At the time of their releases, there was little to compare them to. As such, expectations were being set, rather than being held against these titles. As a consequence, we cannot compare these games from generation head to head. It is just unfair. There will never be a first proper console Star Wars RPG like Knights of the Old Republic again. Battlefront revivals, while still massively falling short of expectations, oh boy, we'll get to that, were always going to struggle to completely capture the essence of the originals. After all, in a postmodern world, nostalgia is king. It is difficult for a new Star Wars title to come forth and feel truly like a pioneer in its style, as games such as the Old Republic and Battlefront series were. What we can say is, by looking at this golden age, LucasArts were clearly creating exciting, innovative games, and adding genuine value to an already respected universe. Alas, all ages come to an end. Thank you all for tuning in to the very first edition of a 3-part series exploring all things Star Wars in gaming. As we can see here, the 90s and early 2000s yielded great results for Star Wars in this new juggernaut of a medium. In part 2, we will explore the frustrating dark ages of Star Wars in gaming and why Star Wars got in the way of its own progress. Once again, thank you all for watching, and please do consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video. We've got upcoming videos, discussions, reviews coming out very soon, as well as of course part 2 and 3 of this investigative series. I have been Michael JH, and at times a nostalgic little bugger. Peace.